What's going on, everybody? This is Jerome Moore, host and creator of Deep Dish Conversations. And firstly, I want to say thank you for all love and support, and thank you for exploring the perspectives of social change with me on this platform. I want to encourage you all to like, subscribe, and follow us on YouTube and on your favorite podcast listen platform. And make sure you give us a 5-star rating if you're loving the Deep Dish Conversations. I appreciate all of the support again. I hope you all enjoy this episode. Aisha, how's it going?
It's doing great. It's going great. How are you?
I'm trying to be productive out here. But I'm excited about this conversation we're about to have.
So am I.
How's life been? How's the campaign been?
Campaign's been great, busy, but I can't complain. Everything's going wonderfully well. Thank you for asking.
Oh, no problem. And so you are a candidate for Chancery Court Part 3.
Yes.
Here in Davidson County, Nashville. It was crazy when I was looking at this. I was like, Part 3, Part 1? That was like different to see that, because it's usually like division or and there's Roman numerals and stuff like that. So it's like Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. Is that right? And that's correct.
Yes.
And so so it's only 4 parts here in Nashville, right? I believe.
Yes, 4 parts to the Chancery Court.
And so the incumbent has retired.
Yes.
And now it's a 2-person race. Seems like right this moment.
Well, I'm the only one who is going to be on the Democratic ballot. Someone is going to, or they say that they are launching a write-in campaign against me in the general, so in August.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, we'll talk about it. But tell us a little bit about who you are, and just a little bit about not the whole story, and then we'll go picking pieces. But just tell a little bit about who you are and your background a little bit.
Okay. Well, my name is Aisha Myles, of course, and I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. Born and raised. My parents are still married. They still live in Cincinnati. I have one sister. Her name is Alita. She lives in LA. And, we were, a pretty normal family, growing up. It grew up in the 80s, so in the 90s, so that's kind of my childhood, background. So we had Sunday dinners together. We got lots of whoopings, we got lots of love too, but it's typical strong Black family. So,
so what would your sister or like some of your childhood friends say about you?
Ooh, okay. There's probably an overachiever, so a little bit on the nerdy side.
Okay.
But probably overachiever. Like, even my sister now is like, you can settle down a little bit. It's okay. So
yeah. Where do you think that come from? Like wanting to just be great at everything, right?
Yeah. I'm a firstborn, so I think that firstborn sometimes have this. Everyone has to be pleased with us.
Yeah.
But I might be a little bit of a type A, maybe perfectionist type person.
Okay. All right.
So
how has that benefited you, but also, maybe cause some barriers? Like, how has that played, pros and cons to that?
Yeah, so, on some things it's great, and then on other things, like, it's really hard sometimes because I want everything to be a certain way. Mm-hmm. And when you're working with different people who have different ways of doing things, you have to sometimes release.
Right.
And let them do their own thing.
Right.
And as long as the job gets done, the job gets done. But yeah, it can sometimes be interesting.
And so, what inspired you to get into a legal career?
Yeah. So when I was a little girl, I told my dad I was going to be a judge someday.
Okay.
Right? So, but we didn't know any lawyers.
Right.
We definitely didn't know any judges. But, I grew up with Huxtables. And so I had Claire Huxtable. And, Cliff was a doctor and Claire was the lawyer.
Right.
And so I just looked at her and I was just like, she was the epitome of style and class, and she was a lawyer. So I told my dad, I was like, I'm going to be a judge someday. And he just kind of looked at me like, okay.
Right.
And I didn't start off, in the law. I had a business career. I worked in business for 10 years before switching careers and going to the legal profession. And I just wasn't fulfilled in business, like corporate, it was all about, dollars and cases out the door and the bottom line for the company. But then the world around me, I just saw gross inequity and how people were not being treated fairly or equitably. And frankly, my companies were just, still just about the dollar and still about the bottom line. So I had a son, and I told my dad, I was like, I told you I was going to be a lawyer, a judge someday. And so now is the time. And I will say that when I was in undergrad, I worked for an attorney while I was in school, and I would just sit and read the cases, read the binders of cases and depositions, and I found it so fascinating. And he allowed me to participate in this one case. There was a case here in Tennessee where people were paying for their loved ones to be cremated, and they actually weren't being cremated. They were being given back like boxes of sand and dirt. Wow. And the bodies were just thrown basically in the back of this business. And I took the call from the plaintiff, the lead plaintiff in that class action lawsuit when I was in undergrad. And I knew then, I was like, I'm going to go to law school someday. I'm actually going to do this. I just had some other things that I wanted to do first. Yeah. So, I came back to the law.
No, that's amazing. Like it's hard for people that's been in something 10 years and then just completely like take a shift, right? And so it was that like going like to law school, like taking LSAT,
taking the
bar, all of that,
taking the LSAT, applying to law school.
Wow, you wanted to go back to school.
I went back to school, and I had a second baby while I got married my first year of law school, got pregnant, my second semester, and, had a baby. So I was a mom, and was doing mom things and school things, a full-time student and a full-time mom, so, but I look at that and say, when there's something that you really want to do, there's nothing that will stop you. I would stay up all night long. And I still get up like at 3:00 in the morning. That's just my best time to get stuff done. But and now I have another baby. I'm divorced, so I'm 3 kids now and a dog. And I practice at a firm, and there's just nothing. I'm convinced that when you put your mind to it, you just have to have grit, and just something that you just won't give up on.
Wow, that's a lot of grit. Like being a full parent, going to school, and it's not like you like. It's not like you're not like you just in school to be in school, right? You're in law school.
In law school.
Like it ain't no like easy days, right? It's a lot.
Yeah.
How did you navigate? Like, what did you learn about yourself like during that time?
Yeah, I really learned. My dad used to say, "You're like a bulldog." And he's like, when a bulldog makes up its mind or clenches its teeth to something, like it does not let go. Like you have to pry its teeth. And he was like, I didn't understand this as a little girl. Like, Daddy, what do you mean I'm like a bulldog? But he was like, you just won't let it go. Once you put your mind to it, like you will not let it go.
Yeah.
And that's really been my journey. You know, like I started off as a single mom and then, find myself full circle again. But, I have a little girl now. She's 6 years old. And I look at her and I want her to know that there is nothing that she cannot do.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing, no barrier that she cannot break. There's nothing that she cannot do.
And that's and I just have to say this just for all, the black women out there, and just women in general, but I like to just, because my mama black, so I just gotta give the high praise in my estimation for me, but, just all the single moms out there that's doing that amazing, like, motherly thing, professional thing, and still, like, keeping all your hair, right? Like, because like just being a parent isn't easy in general, right? But just being a single parent and having to juggle and balance all of those things, like, that's incredible. And so I want to give you your flowers for being able to do that and still be great and accomplish things.
Thank you. Thank you.
What were some of the down times, right? Because I'm pretty sure everything wasn't, like just up and go lucky, right? Being a single mother and having to do all those things. Like, what were some of the down times where you're like, did you ever doubt yourself? Did you ever say, it's a lot, it's too much?
Oh, yeah. Definitely. But what are you going to do?
Right.
It's not like I can say, well, it's too much, I'm going to quit.
Right.
A friend of mine, one of my close friends, she told me this, when things got, a little rough, she's like, at the end of every day, you get to quit. Mm-hmm. You get to say, I'm not doing this anymore today.
Right.
She's like, but in the morning, you get back up and you keep going.
Right.
So there are moments, when I'm like, this is hard, just everything going on. This was before running for office. Now you throw, like, I have 2 full-time jobs and well, maybe 3, with my work, campaigning, and, with the kids. Yeah. And, there are moments that, I'm tired, and I usually just kind of step away and recharge and, do those things that feed my soul. Right. And then I'm ready to go again, so.
And that brings me to, like, I think another important, like, avenue in this is, like, navigating all of this as a Black woman, right?
Yeah.
Being in business, being in corporate, right? Being in just in the legal career, right? A lot of these, or all of these things are dominated primarily by white men, right? How have you been able to navigate those spaces where you are the minority, right? You may be the only woman or even Black woman or Black person or person of color, right. in these spaces.
Yeah, so and just to kind of pinpoint, I do construction law, right? So being a woman in a male-dominated area of the law and then a Black woman in a male-dominated area of the law, I move to the sound of my own drum. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily wait for people to say, it's okay for you to come over here. Right. Because if I sit there and I wait, the invitation will never be extended. I see the opportunity and I seize it. Right. And the one thing that I've learned, especially dealing in construction law and being in, a big firm, like, I have to sometimes make my own path. No senior partner necessarily is there with a book of business, for me. I have been surrounded by amazing Black women lawyers who have been like, when I succeed, you succeed, and we succeed together. Right. My mentor who I practice with, she is an amazing attorney, and she built her own book of business. I built my own book of business, and we work together. It's like we have a sisterhood, and we take care of one another. Right. And, I have been thankful just to be surrounded by some amazing women who have encouraged me, who have, checked me when I needed to be checked, but then also said, what, you can do this. And, being a woman in construction, a Black woman in construction, there are avenues and things that you can get and work that you can get because of who you are. Right. So I step fully into that, and I own that space for who I am. Right. And I look at the opportunities, and I take those opportunities as they come. I don't wait for anybody to give me anything.
That's powerful. And I think if more people had that attitude, right, and understanding the realities, right, because that's what it seems. You understood the realities. Look, it's going to be different for me. It's going to be a different experience. So therefore, I gotta create my own experiences and create my own avenue to get where I want to go, regardless of kind of what the path may look like through other people's eyes, and where other people feel like I should be, right?
Yeah.
That might come with microaggressions and other things, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
All of them.
All of them, right? How did you address those? Because now, like that even that word microaggressions is coming up more, and people are starting to call it out, right?
Yeah.
Which it wouldn't, 10, 20 years ago, that wasn't the case. We knew it was happening, right?
Yeah.
Especially as black folks, and sometimes it can be hard to explain though, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's the microaggressions. It's the little things like it's hard to articulate, especially if you're not
Right.
a person of color.
Right.
Right. So how did you address those things?
Yeah, I don't know that there was an addressing
Right.
or just I'm going to keep moving. You may act this way or treat me this way or say something that's off to
Right.
me, but you know what? I'm not even going to acknowledge that because I know who I am.
Right.
I know what I bring to the table.
Right.
And, you're not me and you'll never be me. So it's just a confidence that I have had that muscle
Right.
that I've had to exercise
Yeah.
time and time again.
Right.
And it's just kind of like, now it is what it is.
And so, Cincinnati, Ohio, right?
Yes.
And now you're here in Nashville.
Now I'm here in Nashville.
So, you came here, Belmont,
Yep.
right?
Uh-huh.
Undergrad and then
In law school.
Law school, right?
Yeah, I lived in New York City for a while as well.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Shout out to New York, but you're not Nashville. A lot of people from New York moving here, actually. Sheesh,
but there's no place like New York.
It is.
right.
I never been.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I never been. I have this thing just like I was born and raised here in Nashville. It's the South, East Coast, South. I got a grudge with just East Coast in general.
Oh my
Just,
goodness.
I really have a grudge with them. But one day, not in the wintertime, but in the summertime, I will go and visit New York City. And I got some people up there too, like some friends of mine. So I might visit. Yeah.
Some of my best times. I found my people when I was in New York, and so some of my best memories of like being carefree and in the city. Right. You should go.
Okay. Cool. So here in Nashville now, how was that move transitioning here from Cincinnati to New York, and then like here you went to school and stuff, but like Nashville has grown a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Since the last 20 years, right? It's just taken off. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I remember when I came here as an undergrad student at Belmont, it was the first time that somebody called me a nigger.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was just like, so that was kind of a slap in the face. It was like my first time away from home, at the school, all white school. There were 5 of us, 5 black students. We all came in on scholarship, and then I get called, a nigger. And so that was a wake-up call to me, like, hey, you're not with your family anymore,
right.
So, and my parents, I wouldn't say that they prepared me for that at all. We didn't discuss that, when I was growing up. And so it was just kind of a wake-up call, and I knew going forward, and I was like, well, you know what? I am in a better position than that person. That person is ignorant, and I'm just going to move on.
Right.
But it was a defining moment. It was the first time that I saw how other people in the South saw me, right? And so my mom would always say, she's like, I'm not moving to the South. She's like, you live in a southern city,
right.
And, some of those things have played out, being in the South. But, there's some great people here. And I think as long as people have the willingness to be open and call a spade,
right.
I don't do this whole, what is it? They call it Southern hospitality.
Yeah.
It's one thing that I appreciated about New York. You knew where you stood with people. They were happy to tell you,
we're friendly, we wave, hey,
and then cut you behind. My preference would be, let me know who you are so I know how to deal accordingly, versus the whole smile on your face,
cut
cut you.
Hospitality now.
Yeah.
Then we'll talk about you, right? Yeah.
Right.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And I never thought, but Cincinnati's not that. It's like it's not that far, because it's like it's Kentucky.
Yeah.
Right, and it's like a couple hours away, right?
Yeah. But it was night and day, coming here in the beginning, And I really had to grapple with some things that I didn't experience growing
Right.
up in Cincinnati. So,
Wow.
I mean, it was good, you know, like
Yeah.
everyone has their coming of age in their own way. I had my coming of age in a southern city and got to experience, you know, the South really for what it was. So, you know, but it made me who I am
And
today.
we're the Athens of the South. Hey, look, but you know, it helped you grow.
It helped me grow.
It helped you grow.
Helped me grow. Helped me grow.
Amazing growth.
Yes.
So, in the and so, okay, so you here when you finished law school, right? And are you still here, or did you move to New York?
So after undergrad,
After undergrad, you moved to New York.
moved to New York,
Then came back.
then came back.
from law school.
Then
Then
came
you
back.
stayed.
Then I stayed.
Okay. What
Then I
made you
stayed.
stay? What made you stay?
Right. So I was pregnant.
Okay.
And so the choice was moving home to my parents,
Right.
which that wasn't going to work. Or coming to Nashville, you know, the place that I had, you know, kind of cut my teeth in
Right.
adulthood. Still had friends here. My sister was here. And
Right.
so I came back.
Yeah.
And, you know, didn't know that in coming back, you know, I would start to see things in this community that I wanted to make better,
Right.
you know, for everyone.
Right.
But mainly like for my people. I saw how our people and frankly some of the immigrants who had come over here, I was working with a school at the time and helping their parents, you know, understand our school system. And they didn't speak the language, they didn't know the culture.
Right.
It was such a big thing to overcome for them.
Right.
And I just saw how they were treated. And, you know, I don't like when people are mistreated. You know, that is
Right.
just something that my mom instilled in us. You know, if you see someone being mistreated, you have to do something about that.
Right.
You don't just get to sit back.
Right.
And so when I came back here, I was kind of in a world where I saw a lot of people being mistreated. They didn't know their rights. No one was taking the time to explain anything to them. And they were just being railroaded in this community. And so I knew that I had to do something about it.
You're in a particular law practice, right? A lot of times when people think about law, I think they go straight to like criminal justice, criminal legal, criminal punishment, however you want to call it.
Yes.
Right? However
Yep.
you want to call it. But you're in, like you said, like construction law.
Yeah.
Real estate, business litigation, like that world of it, right?
Yes.
And it's interesting because Nashville is growing. A lot
Nashville
of
is
business,
growing.
a lot of big business is coming here, right? And is here.
Yeah.
So what does that look like in your job, right? As far as in how that impacts community.
Yeah, yeah. So I represent a lot of small business owners, you know. So I do have some larger clients, but most of my clients are small business, you know, and small business owners need attorneys too. You know, they have issues where they're not getting paid on things or, you know, something has gone wrong. I've represented some police officers in discrimination lawsuits. So my practice really focuses on our community, you know, but just the business owners in our community. And there are a lot of those people. There are a lot of business owners. And one thing that I love is when I get to meet a new client or a client is opening up a new business and I get to see someone who looks like me following their dreams and they've got the money to go with it. You know,
Right.
they are changing the trajectory of their life and their family's life
Right.
and then providing jobs for other people, you know. So that's how I impact community, you know, is by
Yeah.
working with, you know, our businesses and making sure that we've got good representation
Right.
in the legal system.
Do you find that a lot of small businesses have a hard time finding representation and like just understanding what do I do in these situations where like I feel like it's a legal issue, but I just don't know how to handle it, right?
Yeah, yeah. And what I try to do is a holistic approach with my clients, they come to me for a specific issue, right?
Right.
Either they're being sued or they need to sue someone. But then I take a step back and I'm like, well, let's look at the health of the business.
Right.
Do we have the proper, formation? Is the company set up right? Who's your accountant?
Right.
I look at the whole structure because I don't want them coming to see me again on an issue that we could prevent going forward.
Right.
I tell my clients, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Spend the dollars, to ask the right questions of the legal professional on the front end,
Right.
because it's going to save you so much money, time, and heartache on the
Right.
back end. So
I'm really excited to get to this part of it. How this kind of translates over into Chancery court,
yes,
right? Because again, when we hear court system, we going straight into like criminal, legal law. Like we that's because I think that's what we see every day.
Right.
With news and propaganda and just kind of what's happening, we think of the criminal side of it. But that's
Right.
not what typically happens in Chancery court, right?
right.
So break that down to us. What is like some of the critical issues or matters that we should be aware of that still affects all of us in community that happens in Chancery court?
Yeah, so Chancery Court is one of the most important courts in the state of Tennessee, our Davidson County Chancery Court, because Davidson County in Nashville it's the seat of the state, so the litigation and disputes that go on in Chancery Court have reached for the entire state of Tennessee. So
Wow.
some of the cases that chancellors here, and even Chancellor Lyle, who is retiring, our ability to vote by mail during the pandemic.
Right.
That was a big case that affected the election. It affected all Tennesseans of whether or not we could, people could actually vote by mail or if they had to go out during the pandemic.
Right.
Redistricting, is a big thing that is happening, with the new maps drawn by the legislature.
Right.
That lawsuit is in Chancery Court right now, being heard by one of the chancellors,
Wow.
So there are just these far-reaching disputes that go to Chancery Court. Chancery Court also hears what we call metro litigation. So, like if someone is suing Nashville, about an ordinance or, something went wrong in some type of dispute against the city, that goes to Chancery Court. Doctors, dentists, barbers, beauticians, if something goes wrong, if someone files something against their licensure, and then they have to have a hearing at the board and they don't feel that they got a just or fair hearing, they appeal to the Chancery Court. So Chancery Court touches all of these different areas of life. You would go to Chancery Court if you have a dispute that's over $25,000, but also if you need somebody to stop doing something.
Right.
So let's say somebody took your likeness, Jerome, and they said, I'm Jerome.
Right.
You're like, no, I'm Jerome.
Right.
You may file a motion with the Chancery Court to make them stop using your likeness, your name, that you did not give them permission to do. Now, that might not have any monetary value, but the court has the ability to make that other person stop using your information, your likeness.
Right.
So all of that stuff is important to our day-to-day lives, and nobody's going to go to jail from Chancery Court, right? Someone's going to be told to stop doing something or to start doing something, or, money disputes or an interpretation of the Constitution or the law as it should apply to all of the people.
Wow. I never knew. And I wonder how many people also that's listening, watching this, like knew all of that took place in Chancery Court because, so background, I have a master barber's license.
Okay.
My dad is a master barber and master barber instructor. And so it was just like, felt right. Let me get my license too, right?
Yeah.
But I would have never thought that as a barber or as a barbershop owner, that if I needed to like sue somebody or something like that that would need to go through Chancery court.
Yeah, so
right?
for if someone made a complaint against
Yeah.
your license, you would go to the board that
Right.
issues the license first, and then let's say you didn't feel like you got a fair hearing there,
Right.
and you want somebody else to look at it.
Right.
You're going to appeal to the Chancery court.
Wow.
So like parolees, when they go up for parole, if they don't feel like their matter was heard justly in due process, they're going to appeal to the Chancery court as well. So it's a very important court that people don't talk about. They don't know what goes on. You know, have you ever heard of the cases where the baby is born and it needs a life-saving measure,
Yeah.
but the parents have a religious belief that prevents them from giving any medical help to the baby? Those things go to Chancery court, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So if something happens to your child at school, and you need to sue the school, or a teacher, something happens, those things go to Chancery court. And they may not have a monetary value to them, but, a chancellor has the ability to say, yes, this is right, stop doing this, or we're going to give the baby this life-saving, medical treatment, or we're not, So it's a very important court to our day-to-day lives outside of criminal justice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah. Damn, I never knew, and I never thought about that. And why is it not talked about more? Because I think that probably affects more people on a daily basis than the criminal justice system, right?
Right.
And so, we got to start giving more spotlights to our Chancery judges out here in the courts.
Right.
And that kind of pivots me to like my next question. What makes you the best candidate for this seat?
Right. So number one, I have this business background, this business experience, hands-on business experience, coupled with the legal experience. Right. And frankly, it's that mix of business and legal that no other chancellor has that makes me, in my opinion, a perfect candidate for this. Because Chancery Court hears so much business litigation. Right. It also hears construction litigation, a lot of construction litigation, right? You see all the cranes going up around Nashville, all of the disputes. It takes a special understanding of the laws and how those laws are applied to those particular cases. And I do that. I'm in Chancery Court all of the time. I've also clerked with the Honorable Judge Richard H. Dinkins on the Court of Appeals, so I have an appellate background as well. Okay. And when I say appellate, I mean, so when you appeal from one of the administrative boards, like someone filed something against your barber's license, you don't like what happened, you want to appeal, there's a certain way that you look at the case when it's on appeal. Okay. And me having worked with Judge Richard Dinkins on the Court of Appeals, I have that experience as well. So when we look at a well-rounded candidate and what someone brings to the bench as far as their experience, their education, their legal practice, we want to look at the whole candidate, and I come from a good law firm, so I think that I'm the most qualified, frankly, and I bring a unique perspective, a perspective that we've never had on our Chancery courts here in Davidson County or in the state of Tennessee, and I think it's time that perspective have a seat at the table.
And I know you talk about this like in your campaign platform about perspective, and also about like social and economic status, gender, sexual orientation, race, color, and just creating an equitable and just and equal court system, right? Because it's not talked about as much, right? The Chancery Court, but it's talked about a lot of times on the legal side, on the criminal side of court, of disparities, like systemic disparities, especially racial disparities, gender disparities, right? That happen when it comes to decision making. does those disparities exist too on the Chancery court side, and what does that look like?
Of course they,
Yeah.
of course they. So, just because someone isn't going to jail or having a harsher sentence,
Right.
being sentenced to 45 years when their counterpart was sentenced to 5, the same thing can happen in business, right? You can look at the law and the contract can say, John gets X, but for some reason, the other party gets X instead of John, right?
Right.
And so those disparities can happen in business disputes as well. And they do happen.
Right.
They happen every day, day in and day out. And I believe that our system of justice needs to be fair and equitable for all of us. It shouldn't be, well, I know this lawyer or I know this company, and therefore I am going to give them the benefit of the doubt over here.
Right.
It's the same disparities can happen in both sides, on the civil side as well as on the criminal side. And those are the disparities that have to be addressed. And frankly, the only way those things get addressed is that we have people on the bench who are committed to ensuring that everyone is treated fairly.
Right.
Not, I'm going to give my friend a pass because they're my friend.
Right. So you have an opponent. What separates you from your opponent for this candidacy race in Chancery Court, Part 3?
Yeah. So number one, my experience does.
Okay.
I have a well-rounded experience that sets me apart. Also, I think you want to look at someone's judicial character, their temperament, their poise, how they carry themselves. I think that is very important when we think about who is going to be sitting on the bench. And we should take that into consideration.
Right.
You want someone who is going to listen to all sides, not make light of anything, and be serious about the matters that are coming before the court, because these affect people's lives.
Right.
And frankly, just because you've been practicing law for a long time doesn't necessarily mean that you're more qualified. Right?
Right.
What types of experiences have you had that best suit you for the position?
Right.
And I would posit that my variegated backgrounds, appellate experience, hands-on business experience, in and out of that court daily, construction law, those are the types of experiences that we want our chancellors to have. And frankly, when we think about tech and technology and, companies of the future, some of my companies, do a lot of tech work, right? You want the person on the bench to be able to know and understand what you all are talking about when you come in and you have a dispute. You don't want them having to figure out, what is Bitcoin, what is Instagram, what is the new technology. You want someone who has an understanding, has their finger on the pulse of our culture, of society, and also has the business acumen and the legal acumen to make a good decision for the people, the parties before the court.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I think cultural competency is huge. It's a big deal, right? And this is an 8-year term, right? I just go ahead and call it a decade.
Might as well be.
Might as well round it on up, and that's a long time, right?
It is.
That's a hell of a long time. Because it's not like after 2 years or 4 years, we can get some no. After 4 years, you have another 4 years, right?
Right.
So how do you plan on maintaining that cultural competencies tapped into community, right? As potentially, the new judge at Chancery Court, Part 3.
Yeah. So number one, I've got little kids, so they will make sure. And I have a teenager, so I am up on all of the things that are going on. It's like I am a private investigator on the side, just, making sure that I am aware. And so definitely that will help, the fact that I am raising children, and, as technology changes, I have to keep up with what they have going on. But, so I will say I am age-wise, I am younger than the sitting chancellors. And so I plan on still being a part of the community.
Right.
I think that our judges here should be approachable, that they should be active in the community, that they should be around for you to still have interactions with. Just because you're a judge doesn't mean that you go off and you stop interacting and living your life,
Right.
So I plan on continuing to be involved. I still plan on helping out with expungement clinics. I still plan on, going and talking to the kids at Cane Ridge High School about, financial literacy, because
Right.
this is our future. I look
Right.
at the kids, they are our future. I have kids, they are definitely our future.
Right.
If we don't plant seeds in them,
Right.
they won't grow.
Right.
So I plan on staying involved. You're still gonna see me out.
Right.
I'm not going to the house.
Right. Okay.
So.
Yeah, we want to. That's the thing. We see y'all out campaigning, but when campaigns over or not, we be like, where the judges go? So we got you on record. We want to see you still out here, doing your thing.
Yes.
How have you in the past, right, before the campaign itself, kind of stayed in touch with community, particular organizations or schools, right? How have you did that, and what does more of that look like, right, in a potential 8 years?
Right. So I serve on a lot of boards. Right now, I'm the president of the Napier Luby Bar Association. I was the vice president and the treasurer before that.
Okay.
I currently serve on the board of Elevated Development, and we actually go into schools and we talk to kids about financial literacy. And it is wonderful to see some of their lights turn on when you start talking about money. They're like,
Right.
oh, let me pay attention. But, those are conversations that I wish my mom and dad had with me when
Right.
I was in high school or younger, so that I had an awareness of how money was made, the different ways to do it versus learning that in college and then, I felt like being kind of late to the game a little bit. But I still plan on being involved in those things. As I was talking about the expungement clinics, I started the first expungement clinic in Rutherford County. I've done other clinics. I've partnered with Judge Bell with her expungement clinics. I enjoy that work. I still plan on doing that work when I'm on the bench, because it's a way to give back.
Right.
These jobs are public service jobs. I could stay at my firm and work in the private corporate law firm if I wanted to.
Right.
But I've always had a heart for service and have always tried to make sure that I am serving my community in some capacity. So I don't believe that you can be an effective public servant if you're not out there serving.
Right.
So my kids and I, we feed the poor at the Nashville Rescue Mission. My 15-year-old is coming with me because I need him to understand,
Right.
Not everybody has it like he has it. And I want
Right.
him to appreciate, this is selfish, but I want him
Right.
to appreciate what he has,
Right.
but then also have a heart to know that there are people out there who need our help. And
For
that's
sure.
what we should be doing.
For
Everybody can give back in some capacity. So you'll still see me out there.
Okay. And I think this is a big one too, accountability. Right? It's really hard for judges. It's really hard for community to hold judges accountable a lot of times, right? I know there's like court watch and things like that to kind of be able to see what goes on in the courtroom, and with judges, and kind of see how equitable, how fair they're being to everybody that walks in there. And it's educational too, right? A lot of people just don't know what is going on in our courtrooms unless
Right.
you have to be in court, right?
Yeah.
Which we don't want. And so from that accountability piece, how will you respond to that from community, right?
Yeah.
They want to say, hey, why did you make this decision? Or, how did you come to this decision? How did you come to that choice? Do you welcome something like a court watch?
Oh, yeah. So the one thing that I learned when I was on the Court of Appeals with Judge Dinkins, and I loved what he did. Now, he did this with the students. He would invite them in and let them watch court. And then he would buy them lunch, and they would go into like a conference room, and they would talk about what they had seen and heard that day.
Right.
You know, it kind of broke down the barrier between the judge and the students, and they got a small group setting, you know, with the sitting appellate court judge.
Right.
You know, I think that same concept can be applied to the community. Come watch court
Right.
on Fridays, dockets. Come watch, be a part of the process. If you think that there's something that, you know, I need to do better, tell me.
Right.
You know, I'm open to feedback. The only way that you are better is if you have feedback and you're
Right.
hearing from the people. And like I said, this is a service job.
Right.
I work for you all.
Right.
I would work for you, just like I work for my clients, and they sure enough call if something is not done the
Right.
way they want it done. You know,
Yeah.
I welcome that feedback because it is a way, number one, to break down the barrier, I think, between the courts and the community.
Right.
You know, people only come to court on a really bad day or something has gone terribly wrong.
Right.
But why not come just to see what's going on in the
Right.
courtroom?
Yeah.
You know, why not
Yeah.
come when there's, you know, a motion hearing? You might learn something.
Right.
You might make a connection with somebody out in the hall that leads you to another place in your business. You just never know
Right.
just by coming to court and seeing who's there,
Right.
learning something, you know, from the proceedings that you can take away with
Right.
you.
What would be the benefit for businesses here in Nashville and Davidson County? Small business owners, large ones, anything above $25,000. What would be the benefit of them coming into a courtroom with you on the bench?
So, we've never had a woman of color chancellor sit on our Davidson County bench, the state of Tennessee. We've never had a civil trial court judge who's a woman of color in Davidson County. And it's statistically proven that corporations do better when they have diversity in their ranks, when they have diverse boards, when they have diverse CEOs, CFOs, you know, people in leadership. The company as a whole does better than a company that is homogenous.
Right.
And I would posit that our court system will do better and be more equitable and fair to all people when there are different voices and different perspectives at the table. You know, I'm a firm believer that the community has to have faith that the judicial system is for them. The only way that that is accomplished is when our judiciary is reflective of the community that it serves.
Right.
People cannot go to another forum to get their disputes resolved. You have to go to court.
Right.
And if you walk in a court and nobody looks like you, not from the front, you know, from the time you enter all the way up to the bench, psychologically, you're going to say, you know what, they're against me.
Right.
Just from the look of the room.
Right.
You know, and it's 2022. It just shouldn't be that way anymore.
Right.
And there's no reason that it has to continue that way. You know, and you asked me one of the reasons that I'm doing this, and I think about my daughter, McCartney. You know, I don't want her to ever think that because no one else has done it before that she can't do it. You know, so for every young lawyer, every young black female lawyer, every young lawyer of color, I don't want them to think because we've never been on the judiciary in Nashville or Davidson County, then we can never be there.
Right.
That's just not the case.
Right.
It just takes one person saying, you know what, I may fall down completely, you know, but at least I've advanced the ball forward for all of us.
Right.
And, you know, the next 8 years, maybe it'll happen that time.
Right.
But it doesn't ever happen if we don't ever get out of the boat and get into the game.
So, essentially, you could potentially make history, right, here in Nashville, Davidson County. Yeah. That's a big deal. No, that's a big deal, and you will never know unless you try, right?
Never know unless you
You'll
try.
never know unless you try. And I think that's important. Whether win or lose, you have to try to see if you win or lose.
Right.
But that could definitely spark a different catalyst for somebody else to say, "Oh well, you know, if Aisha did it, well, I possibly can do it then."
Right.
You
Right.
know.
You always want to leave any situation, win, lose, or draw. And I don't believe in losing. That is
Right.
not something that is in my vocabulary.
Right.
You may pivot to do something different,
Right.
but you don't ever lose because you've learned along the way.
Yep.
And you've grown, and
Right.
so it's always a win.
Right.
But you always want to leave the situation better
Right.
than when it started. And so no matter what happens with this campaign, Nashville, I hope y'all vote for me. But even if you don't, the situation is better because I ran.
Right.
It's better for all people. More people know what the Chancery Court does.
Right.
You know, so our communities are being educated about this very, very important court. So to me, it's a win all the way around.
What has been the biggest thing you've learned so far during this journey that makes you the best candidate for this seat?
It makes me the best candidate for this seat. So it's really the ability to listen to all people. You know, I have gone into our community, and then I have gone into the Green Hills community. You know, I've met with the Muslim community. It's really having the ability to bring all people together.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, everybody wants a system that
Right.
is fair and equitable for all of us. Nobody wants to feel like they're left out.
Right.
And it's that listening ear and being able to say, you know what, I don't have all of the answers. I may have to get back with you on that, you know,
Right.
so, but being able to listen, digest the information, and try to make it better. I think that makes me the best candidate.
I want to give you the last word. Is there anything else that maybe we didn't talk about that you would like voters to know, be mindful of before early voting in April and the voting date in May?
You know, I think that in 2022, I am still surprised that we have not yet come as far as we probably should be as a society, as a community, as a southern city in Nashville. You know, unfortunately, racism is still alive and well, and it rears its head in a real way when people think that you should not be somewhere. And that is something that I can honestly say I didn't anticipate in this journey.
Wow.
And it was kind of a slap in the face, you know, when we sometimes talk about the women's movement and how, you know, it's all about women, uplifting of women. And that is not true when you want something that certain women don't think you should have. You know, and so that was kind of an aha moment for me. And in a way it was freeing, you know, because I'm like, show me the colors. At least I know what I'm dealing with so that I can navigate around.
Right.
You know, but in doing that, I also learned that just because a certain sect or certain group of people says this is not for you, doesn't mean that it's not impossible.
Right.
It just means that you have to be creative about how you go and do it.
Right.
You know, maybe take the longer route, or you go to people who have never been asked to participate in a judicial race, and you talk to them about why do they care about their courts, or you educate them about the court, and then all of a sudden you've got your biggest fans over there.
Right.
You know, the other thing I learned is that sometimes your support will come from unlikely places. One of the people who has been so instrumental in, you know, this campaign for me is an older white attorney. And he has gone to the mat for me. And he didn't have to do that.
Right.
You know, but I look at him and I said, I never would have thought it would have been you.
Right.
You know, so you can never, going into certain things, you never know who's going to be for you and who's going to be against you. And the
Right.
one thing that I've learned is always be true to yourself, because you're going to have haters on every side, you know,
Right.
and you can't please everybody all the time.
Right.
So if you're true to yourself, day in and day out, you will be at peace no matter what. You know, so that's been kind of the biggest aha. And I think that that makes me stronger as a person, you know, stronger with no matter what I'm going to do, you know,
Right.
going forward. Because I have learned through a very public way how to be true to myself and to have people throw shade and be like, that's okay.
Right.
It's all good.
Still going to shine through the shade.
Still going to shine through the shade.
Well, as we close, I want to give you the last word to just tell the potential voters, you know, early voting is in April, voting day is in May, that elevator pitch on why they should vote for you. And also, if they have more questions that maybe we didn't talk about here, how can they reach out to you and find out more about you and kind of what the next 8 years could possibly look like?
Yeah. So, well, I hope all of you all will vote for me. You know, if you look at my campaign and how hard I have run since Chancellor Lyle announced her retirement, I have really been out there listening to all of you. And our Chancery Court is so very, very, very important. Having someone who has a diverse background and experience and brings all of that to the bench is something that benefits all of us in the end, you know? And someone who's committed to equity, someone who's committed to saying, I don't care who you are, how you come in, if you're rich or poor, you know, what race you are, who you love, I'm going to treat you with respect. Because that's how I want to be treated. Right? I'm not going to look down on anyone, because I've had so many people look down on me. Like, who am I to ever look down on anyone? And I think that there's a humbleness and a grace. You never know how people walk through the door or what they dealt with before they come into the door. And so I just believe in treating people with grace and respect. And so if you want that on your Davidson County bench, you know, for the next 8 years, because you never know, you know, if you'll end up in Chancery Court, you know, you should vote for me. You know, I tell people there will only be one Aisha on the ballot. I promise you that. My last name is Myles, you know, but you can check me out on Instagram at Aisha Myles for Judge. My website is milesforjudge.com. You can email me at info@milesforjudge. And, you know, send me a message or send me a DM on Instagram or on Facebook, and I'm happy. I'm an open book. You can also find me at the law firm. So I'm at Bo McAllister. You just look them up and call, and, you know, you can actually get to me very quickly there. So.
Aisha, I appreciate this.
Thank you.
I learned a lot. Hopefully, our viewers and listeners learned a lot as well. And again, I advocate for everybody. Get out there, vote, judicial elections. We only had 25,000 people the last judicial elections out of like 400 or 500 people here in the city.
Right.
We got to do better.
Yes.
And we have to have a better turnout because, again, these are eight years. This is a long time.
It's a long time.
So, yeah, let's do it, Nashville. Let's show up, and thank you again. And until next time, we got to have you back.
Yes, thank
All
you.
right.
I do just want to real quick say, like, I'll be the only person on the ballot. So, you know, at least for Chancery Court Part 3, so it'll be really easy to vote for me as well.
Easy name. When you see it, you'll know it.
So, but no, this has been wonderful. Thank you for the opportunity. And I believe that we should vote in every single election. You know, we can't complain about how things are going to be if we're not going to vote to.
True. Community elections, though, local, I put more emphasis because I can see you.
Yeah.
I might see you at Kroger's,
Yep.
Publix, wherever you shop. I might say, that's Chancery Judge Aisha. Hold on now. Wait. I got a question for you, but I
Right.
know, if I can ask, or I can just give you kudos.
Yeah.
Right? And so I just think that's, especially the accountability part in local elections, you can really touch, feel, and see the candidates in real time, and they not out of reach. Right.
Right. And the local elections, your local officials actually affect your everyday lives.
Every day.
Right? Like the president, okay, yes, vote for the president. But at the end of the day,
Right.
that doesn't affect your everyday lives.
Right.
It's whoever your state representative is, your state congressman, your local officials, your
Yep.
school board, your judges,
Right.
all
City
of those
council, mayor,
yes, exactly.
all of that, yep.
Those folks up in the legislature,
Yep.
they are the ones who are making the laws that govern us here in Tennessee.
Right.
You've got to pay attention and
Right.
vote for every
Right.
local election.
sure.
Yeah.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
And,
This was great.
I hope I had a good time. So I hope everybody
I
else
feel like
learned
they
something.
do. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
All right,
Thank
till next
you.
time. You're welcome.
Bye-bye.